Okay, it's hour 2. We've been working with a basic file upload. So now what we need to do is we need to take it and actually save the file somewhere. So I'm going to go inside my old files. I'm going to make a new directory here that I will call uploads. And I'm going to use this folder to save the file. So now we want to save a copy to the uploads folder. So we'll use this descriptive method, move uploaded file. It takes 2 parameters, from where to where. So we're going to we want to take it from our temp directory. That's here, our C, XAMPP, TMP, and whatever the unique name is. And we're going to save it into uploads. And first, we'll just keep the original file name. Okay, so we won't rename it yet. We're just going to keep the file name as it is. So I'm going to upload a file, and then I want to go and check my uploads directory and see if it shows up there. So I'll browse, I'll pick an image, upload it, and now I can go to my lamp food folder, and in old files and uploads, we've now got a copy of the image. Cool. I'll try uploading maybe a Word document because we've allowed that kind of file as well. Go browse, and I'll pick a Word doc, upload it. Now I've got a copy here as well. So what do you think will happen if I upload this same file again? There's a few options. It could overwrite my original upload, which is timestamped at 312. It could rename the file, like put like a bracket 1 after it, or it could give me an error. What do you suppose, what's your guess will happen if we try and upload the same file again here? What would your expectation be? Okay, Jacob says overwrite. Luke thinks it'll put a 1. Megan says overwrite. All right, try it out. So I'm going to browse again. Go back to my logo, which was created last semester by a student in the web program. They did a great job for an app we were building in class. And I upload, and it's overwritten the file, right? My timestamp went from 312 to 314. So the default behavior when we use this move uploaded file, our default behavior here is to overwrite. So it will overwrite the existing file with the same name. So this is where we can use the session object to help generate a unique name. So here's how we're going to do that. I'm going to call session start to access the current session. Okay, Quinlan, so check your error message carefully and compare your code with what I've got. Make sure also, if you're going to inject the variable name in this string, it's got to be in double quotes. You can't use single quotes here. If you use single quotes, you've got to append the variable name outside with a concatenator. So I'm going to change the name. So you notice we've got a bunch of session methods here, and there's one called session ID. So this will give us so basically we're going to prefix so when you call move uploaded file, okay, Quinlan, so is anybody else getting that? So that has to do with permissions on your operating system. So if you're getting a permission denied error, and Quinlan, you're working locally, I assume, right? You're using localhost? Are you on Mac or Windows? Ah, okay. So what you need to do, I'll show you how to do it on Windows. You have to look how to do it on Mac. We've got to set the permissions on the uploads directory. So you may have to go here in your Finder. If it was in Windows, you would have to go to, where are we here? I'd right click my folder and go to the properties. And under security, right, you'd have to give write permissions or full control permission. Sorry, I don't have a way to show it to you on a Mac, and I know the process may be a little different. So you've got to look up enable. You may have to do a search for enabling folder write permissions to a folder on Mac OS. So your code's right. It's actually just the security settings in your operating system. You haven't necessarily done anything wrong. So I'm going to try it by accessing our session and prefixing the session ID on. Okay, great. So if you're a Mac user like Quinlan, you may have to do the same. So what I want to try, I'm going to test this. It should give me a unique name. I then want to go to a different browser and upload the exact same file. And because every browser will have a unique session ID, I should be able to upload the same file twice to the same folder, but each one will be named uniquely. So in Firefox, I'll upload the same file again. And now when I look in my uploads, I now have same file, but notice it's got a session ID that starts with BFC. I'm going to upload the exact same file through Chrome, but I should get a unique name. So go to my pictures. Upload, but instead of overwriting, here's my Firefox upload, here's my Chrome upload. Now, any other files that I upload through that same session are going to have the same ID. But that's fine. So I'll go browse to a different one. And now I've got two files, two different names, but the same session ID. So using this algorithm, this means if I upload the same file name in the same browser session, yes, it's going to overwrite, but I'm okay with that. Now, you don't have to use the session ID if you want, or you could use the session ID and a combination of the current date and time if you want a timestamp on the files. This is not the only possible algorithm you could use. Up to you. Okay, so that's pretty much all there is to the file upload piece. A form with the encoding type attribute and an input with type equals file. And then we are going to process the file using the $_files collection that's built into PHP. We can get the name. We can get the size in bytes. We can get the temporary cache location that that upload sits in. We can use MIME content type to tell us the actual file type, irrespective of the extension, in case that is spoofed. We can uniquely name it with a little help from our friend, the session object. And then we call move uploaded file to copy that file to whatever folder we want it to live in permanently. And it will stay here now until either it'll stay here forever unless we get rid of that directory. Now I'm going to upload my code to AWS because I want to try it on AWS for a minute, because on AWS, we're likely going to run into the same issue that Quinlan ran into on his Mac OS, that those write permissions by default probably are disabled. So I'm going to connect to AWS. I'm not going to install my new version right now. I'm going to go into my lamp food. And I'm just going to upload the old files directory. I don't need to upload everything. I'll just right click old files and I'm going to upload that. I'm then going to open up on the server. I'm going to open up my old files and I'm going to open up the uploads folder. So I want to try to upload on the server and see. I've got 5 files in here, but I have a feeling in order for our uploads to work on AWS, we're going to have to enable that write permission. I'm going to try it out. So I'll go to my lamp food. I'll go to my old files. And my upload test. So it loads our form. So you're going to try uploading a new file. Something different. Let's upload some fish tacos. Got some food photos here. It gives me a temp location. But inside my directory, if I just right click and refresh, notice I still only have 5 files here. So I don't have permission to write to the uploads directory on AWS. So here's how we fix that. I'll go back up 1 level, just click this little folder here. And it takes me back to my old files directory. So get out of your uploads folder. And then I'm going to select my uploads folder. And I'm going to right click it and choose file permissions. And I've documented it in the slide deck that's on D2L. So I am recording this, but you also have it in that slide. There's a screenshot of this. So click file permissions and look at the permissions. As the owner, when I log in with my FileZilla FTP username and password, I have read and write permissions. But when this directory is being accessed by the public, meaning through a web page, we can only read. We don't have the ability to write. So I'm going to check. Notice when I check that box, before this said 755. That means public read only. So I can either change this to 757 or I could just check the write box. I also, if I have subfolders inside, I can say recurse into subdirectories. We don't have subdirectories here, so it doesn't matter if I check this box or not. But we've got to check this one. We need to enable public write permissions. and I'll click OK. And I'm going to refresh my process upload test. I think the first time, and it's just toggling it, Megan. So it should check it once, and then it should. Good question. I'm not sure what it means. We'll have to check that out. But we want to make sure it's checked. I'm not sure why. So I'm going to resend my file upload. I get a new temp location. And now when I go back to uploads, okay, well, I still only have 5 files. Where is it? Well, if I right click and refresh, here's my fish taco JPEG. It's here now. So just when you leave the folder and come back, FileZilla caches the contents of these folders unless you refresh them. So if I want to upload something else, enchiladas look good, and upload. And now when I refresh, that file's uploaded as well. And again, I get the same session ID here. And my local session IDs are different than the ones on AWS because the session IDs live on the server. So each web server will generate its own unique session ID. Here's my local ID, and here's the one from AWS. So there's our test upload. So I can upload files and it's functional, but so far it's not at all integrated into the rest of our application, right? This is just kind of like a standalone. These are standalone pages. They're in no way connected to our grocery list application that we're making. So I now want to take what we've done, but integrate it into our Lamp Food site. So if we have a picture of an item we want it to show up, and when we're adding or editing items, we want to include the ability to attach a photo to any item on the grocery list if we want. Now, fortunately, we already have a place in the database to store these. So let's look at our database for a second. So when we set up the items table way back in week 2, oh no, we didn't. I apologize. We've got a name, a quantity, and a category, but we don't have, I thought we did, getting my sections mixed up with this course. We didn't allocate any space in the database for a file name. So we want to fix that. And of course, I did think about this because I already put it on D2L, but I forgot that I did. So here's the script that you can grab. It's in the lesson 11 folder. It's the alter table script to store images. So we're going to alter the items table. We are going to add a column called photo that accepts a 100 character string, and it can be null. An item does not have to have a photo, it's optional. So you can copy that from D2L, fire up MySQL Workbench to connect to your database. As usual, we need to run the use command like we always do. And then you can run your alter table script that's going to build out a 5th column here, and all the values for all of our current items, they're going to be null. So I'll just run this whole thing. And now when we look at the table, before I had 4 columns, now I have 5. But photo is null for everything so far. Okay, so go ahead and run that alter table command in your database. So when we add file uploads, we can grab the name, and when we're adding or editing an item, we can include a photo if there is one. Okay, good question, Megan. There are two ways we can store file uploads. And that's a good point. We should talk about that. I'm glad you raised the question. I meant to address it. So one option, my preferred option, is to simply store the name of the file in the database. Now we could add it as a blob instead, which would store the actual image files themselves directly in our database. So you could do it that way. I've found through experience, I prefer to upload the file to the server, but simply store the name as a string instead. How come? What do you think would be the benefit of storing the file as the photo as a string as opposed to a blob? Both would work, so it's not a bad idea. And some developers might prefer to use a blob. What's the benefit of storing it as a string? You got it, Ivan. It's simply smaller, right? If we upload a 2 megabyte photo, that takes up storage space. The bigger our database gets, the more expensive it is and the slower it is. So I've found it's faster when we're doing file uploads to simply store the name of the file basically as a link to it and then upload and just store the file itself on the web server. So if you wanted to use a blob, you could, but the process is going to look kind of different. Okay, so let's go back here. So I want to add to item details, we want to add a file upload box, as well as we're going to have to modify the form tag. It also is driving me nuts that I haven't put any padding on our forms, which I'm quickly going to do. And close up most of the things we've got open here. Okay, so let's open up item details for a minute. So here's our item details form that we're using for adding and editing. Here's our style sheet. If I add form group to my field sets, that'll add some padding. So I'm going to add this class to my 3 field sets. That'll space them out a bit. Completely optional. You don't have to do this. Well, Chris, they've got to go somewhere. So they either have to go on the web server or they have to go in the database. Generally, no. Putting them in the database and making the database bigger is going to make the server slow. It's going to affect it more than storing the files on the web server, in my experience. So that just gives me a little padding here when I add that form group. So now down after our last field set, which for me ends on line 79, I want to add one more field set. So after the category, but before our save button, we want a file dialog box. It's field set, class is equal to form group. Put on a label for photo. And then an input type equals file. The name will be photo. And the ID will be photo because it matches the new column we just put in our database. Right? We're going to store the names of these files in a column also called photo. So there's the new field set. I put it in the chat. Right. Whoops, I need a little class on my label so that this gets shoved over here. Our label should be 2 columns wide. Same class that's applied to all the other labels, so everything aligns nicely. Right. There we go. So it looks good. There's one more thing we need to do with this. Actually, two. I guess we could add, as Chris suggested earlier, right? We could add our accept equals, we'll maybe say the JPG and that PNG. So we're going to allow JPEGs and PNG. We have to do one more thing on our form. What did we do on our upload test form? We added the input type equals file. Well, we've got that. Oh, yes, we could add that as well. Megan, that's a good point. We want JPEG. That should be allowed as well. Good point. Yep. But there's one essential thing we're missing. That's right, Chris. So on our form tag, because we've now added a file upload box, we need that encoding type. Not really, Megan. It's just another version of a JPEG, but it does have a different, these are both valid extensions. The MIME content type for both will evaluate to image/JPEG with an E for both of these. So up in my form tag, on line 40, we've got to add the encoding type as multi-part form data. If you don't add this, your file uploads just get ignored. So make sure you add the encoding type to your form. We don't have to process a file upload, but if we do include a file without this, it's like it's not there. So make sure you put that in. And we're done with this form for now. We'll need to modify it again when we're editing, but here's how it looks. So now we need to jump over to our save item page so that we can check when the user's adding something to the grocery list, we want to check if there is a file that was included. And if there is, we want to save the image and also include the name in our database. Now, if we look at our directory structure right now, we don't actually have any place to store these file uploads. So I'm going to create, a folder within and then a subfolder. So I'm going to right click my LAMP food project at the very top. I'm going to make a new directory called IMG for storing any images. Whoops. Try that again. New directory, IMG. Now, we may have other images that are our own that are part of the site, like we could make a logo, for example, and stick it in the header. We don't have any images right now, but we may add some images to the site. I want to separate out any images that the user uploads from any images we put in the site ourselves. So inside of here, I'm going to make a subfolder. So under IMG, I'm going to make a new directory. And maybe I'll call it item uploads. So we know these images, specifically ones that were uploaded as part of the grocery item record. So I want to save anything that gets uploaded to the grocery list. I want it to go in here. And we'll use this top level images folder for any other images we might use in the site later. So now we're going to need to go to our save item page and add the code that's going to check for a file upload. And if there is one, I mean, first we're just going to deal with the scenario of when we're creating. We'll deal with editing later. But we want to be able to add a new item, upload an image to it, and get that image saved and attached to the grocery item. So let's open up Save Item. So we're now going to add here. We may or we may not have an image that got uploaded. So we're going to check for it. We'll say if, I think we can use not empty. We'll check our files. Photo. We'll try this. So if there is a file name, a photo name uploaded, check that upload is an image. So first we want to do the type checking. We'll say type equals, we'll use our MIME content type. Have a good one. So if a file got uploaded, we want to check the type using MIME content type. And we'll say if type does not equal image.jpg and type is not a PNG, we'll say, nope, this file type is invalid. And we'll say OK is false. So if something got uploaded, we want to check what kind of file it is and make sure that it's a JPEG or a PNG. The user uploaded a document, an Excel file, a GIF, an SVG, anything else, a bitmap, we're going to say no. Otherwise, give file a unique name and save to IMG item uploads. Now we've already got our header that calls session start, so we don't need to call session start here. We can just say name equals session ID. And we'll take the original name. So we're keeping the original name. Again, we're prefixing it with the session ID. And then we can call move uploaded file, which is going to save it into our folder up here. Actually, sorry, I don't want to use the variable name. This should be called photo. Sorry about that. So we'll call move uploaded file. So from the temporary directory, and we're going to move it to img Atom uploads. And we're going to save it with our unique name, which includes our session ID. If no photo is uploaded, we're just going to set the photo variable to null. So we'll try this out before we actually save anything. I can put this section up on paste bin. This goes right before I guess we could have put it after. Sorry, I'll move this down. Before our if okay. After we validate the other fields, we'll check the photo. If we've got one, we'll validate the file type. We'll name it uniquely and save if it's good. Otherwise, we'll just say it's null. So I'm going to put this block of code on paste bin. We can experiment with it a bit. So I'm going to try this. First, I'm going to upload a file that's a Word document. And it should say invalid file type, and it should stop everything. So a grocery item is a document. One document. I'm going to browse and upload a file that I know is not an image. So pick a Word document. And it tells me invalid file type. So that's good. What if I pick an actual There's one, some food. I want some black bean soup. So let's see what happens when I go to save this. No error that we can see. So if I go to my image and item uploads, so my file got uploaded, which is good, but it's still not attached in my database. Right? If I look in my database and run my query, okay, obviously I've got an error in here because it didn't save. But we also need to add this piece to our database saving. So now I've got to modify my insert code. So we also want to insert into the photo. And I'm going to add a fourth parameter in my insert, :photo. Here, I'll just wrap it so you can see the whole command in one line. So I've added comma photo into the list of columns and comma colon photo into the list of values. Now, that still should have saved the database, so I'm going to have to debug that, figure out why. I now also need to add the photo to my list of bound parameters. So even if it's null, whether it's null or whether there is actually a photo name, I want to now save that to the database and attach it to this item. And we allocated 100 characters in the database. So I've modified the insert, I've added the column and the parameter, and then I'm filling the photo parameter down below. Now something didn't work exactly. That's weird. It should have worked. Let me run my query again. Maybe I missed something. Okay, we'll figure out why. We will, yes, Ivan, but we'll deal with it first in the insert because there's a few different scenarios when we're updating, right? We're adding, we want to take an item that has no photo, like all of these, and we want to attach a photo, or we want to change the photo. We have a photo already that we'll want to display when we're editing. We want to show the current photo, but give the user the ability to change that photo as well. So we'll start with insert and let's try to get it working. And once insert's working, we'll do it with update. So we'll do that in the last part of class. So I'm going to go back, just try again. I'll have to figure out why my save didn't work. So I want a soup and pantry. Okay, interesting. So this is where I'm going to disable my try catch so we can figure out what's wrong. So I'm going to disable that. And I'll disable my try. I'm going to resubmit my form. And this process is normal. We make mistakes, we try again. Okay, number of variables doesn't match number of tokens. Interesting. I've got 4 parameters. This should be adding. Oh, I think I know why. Because my item ID is not null. On my form, I've got an error here. So it's trying to do an update. This isn't null. So I need to make sure my item ID is null on this page when I'm adding a new one. So go back to my item details. Right. I need to initialize item ID. So I'm rendering it in my input, item ID, but I need to initialize that to null. That'll make that error go away. So I'll try one more time. I realize we're almost due for a break. I'm going to log into the site so I can add. Okay, so now I have no error. My value is empty string. I'll add soup from the pantry. Browse to my picture. And save. Okay, no error this time. That's good. So now when I go back to my grocery list, I've got my soup. And when we look in the database, I've now got my photo that includes my session ID. It starts with DCIM. So because I've got two different browsers open and one is private, this is my new one. It's uniquely named, it doesn't overwrite the old version. So for our insert, this is now working the way we want it to. I could also insert something without a photo and it'll just be null. So, I want oranges, let's say. I want half a dozen oranges from the produce section. But I'm going to leave out the photo. I should still be able to save this. So here are my oranges. And we've just saved them and the photo is null. That's fine. We don't have to attach an image, it's optional. So when we're adding an item and we want to include a photo, we can, but we don't have to. So what we will do, I'm going to upload, in case you missed anything in the save, I'm going to upload to GitHub. We'll take a break. When we come back, we're going to do a couple of things. On this page, we want to include a thumbnail of the image, if there is one. And then, yes, Ivan, we're going to tackle the editing. So when I go to edit an item, like my soup, if there's a photo in the database, I want to display it here. So show the current photo when there is one. And then if the user's uploaded a new photo, we want to replace it. So that'll have to get included in our update as well. So yes, we're going to do that. So I'm going to push to Git, and we will take a pause here, and we will wrap that up when we return. Okay, I guess this is going to be a long recording because I forgot to stop it. So there will be a 10-minute. You'll have to fast forward from about minute 50 to about minute 60 if you watch the recording. Sorry about that. All right, well, we will carry on. So our first order of business now is to show the photos on our grocery list when we have them. So we need another column here with a little bit of logic. So let's open up our items page. So maybe what I'll do after the quantity, so here we're creating the table. We've got our first three headings, category, name, and quantity. We don't really even need a photo heading. I think we can just put in a blank heading here. So just an opening and closing TH tag. If you want to put the word photo in there, you can. I'm not going to. And then inside of our loop, when we're displaying each grocery item, we're displaying the category, the name, the quantity. So here's our first column, is the first set of TD tags is our category. Then we had some logic around the item name. So a logged in user sees the item names as links, and an anonymous user just sees them printed out. Then we've got our item quantity. So after this, we'll echo out another TD. And we'll say if guess we can use empty. So if our photo is not empty, we want to display it, but we don't want to show the full size. We'll just kind of use a thumbnail. So here's how we can print out the photo with the name that comes from the database. We'll echo out an IMG tag, and our source is going to be equal to IMG item uploads. And then a slash, and then we'll append on the photo. Maybe I'll say alt equals item photo. And I also don't want this to be too big, so I can use a class. I think Bootstrap may have a thumb or thumbnail class. We'll try thumbnail. We'll see what that does. So if there is a photo value in the record in the database, we're going to render that as an image tag. If there's no photo, we're not going to do anything. And then we'll just close the column. Show photo, if there is one. So I'm inserting this after the quantity. Let's see how this works. We may need to play with the class or even define our own little thumbnail class. We may have to. I'm going to try it out and see. Okay, so it almost worked. What happened? It's looking for, okay, file not found. So my path isn't quite right. IMG item uploads. Thank you. I forgot a quote in the path. Thank you, Owen. Right. So at the end of the first line, I need to close off my source attribute. So there's the source. Part of it, first half is hard-coded. Our IMG item uploads, then a slash, and then we're appending on the value from the database, and then I need to close that attribute. Good catch there, Owen. So I need to add that double quote. I'll put that in the back in the chat with the fix. And we'll see if our thumbnail class is working for us as well. No, it is not. Okay, I think I'm going to create my own little class in our style sheet. I'm going to change this. So this thumbnail class doesn't seem to do anything. So we'll define this in our CSS. I'll go to my CSS and styles. And I'll make a thumbnail definition. We'll maybe show it at 75 pixels. So we're going to, doesn't matter what the original image size is, we're going to scale it down to show just a little picture of it. So I'll define a thumbnail class, I'll define my style. So now it looks like this. It'll scale, so all my images will be 75 pixels wide. So here I am logged in. I never remember my Firefox command to clear my cache and refresh. I think it's Control Shift. There's a hotkey. I don't want to delete my whole cache. There, Control F5. There we go. So now I can add other items. Go ahead and add something else. So I'll browse, pick a different picture, and save. I can probably put my redirect back, and now I get my other image showing up. So we now need to incorporate this, as Ivan said, when we're editing an item as well. So if I go to edit one of these items, if there is a photo attached, I want to display it, maybe not at full scale because the photos are really big, but I want to show the current image if there is one here. And then I can also replace it by uploading a different image. Now this is going to be a bit tricky because we have a few different scenarios. I have an image here already. What if I want to change the item in the grocery list, but I don't want to change the image? We also then want, so I'm not uploading a file. I don't want to wipe out the image I've already put in here. So to do this, we'll need to do one more thing on our item details. We're going to want to save into another hidden field the current image so that we don't wipe it out if we're updating something else without changing the photo. You know what? I'll leave that for now just so you can, maybe I'll create the problem so you can see what I'm talking about. So let's go to our item details page. So before our save button, we're going to put on a set of PHP tags, show current image, if any. So we'll say if, not empty. Really the same code we used in our list of items. If our item photo is not empty, we want to display it in an HTML image tag. And maybe we'll just, for simplicity, we'll show it at thumbnail size. This time I'll remember to close my double quote. Thanks, Owen. And our alt can be item photo. So if this particular grocery item has a photo, we're just going to display it at thumbnail size. So we know whether there is an image here or not. And I'll just also add, what do we want to do? Offset 2. So instead of the photo being over the left under the labels, it's underneath all of the text inputs. I'm going to try this out. I'll put the code in the chat. So we're checking if the current item has a photo value in our query. We are going to display this photo using an HTML image tag. Now we've messed up our save button. It's okay, we could probably leave it over here, no big deal, really. If I go to edit a different item, right, if there's no image attached, that's fine, doesn't show up. I edit this one. Okay, I should wrap this in a div so it think if I put my button inside a div tag, it'll stay in the right place, I think. I'm just going to try it. I'll put this stuff in the chat in a minute to see if that fixes my formatting. Right. Now the save's down below. So what happens? So now we need to go, to our save item page. All this code at the top is all good. We're going to change the code in our update statement to also, just like we did in our insert, we want to include now, right? Photo is going to be equal to photo. So we're going to add this into the list of fields that get updated. We've already got the parameter being bound. So doing the update's pretty simple. We've already written the code to process the file upload. We just now need to change the record in the database if the user changes the photo. So I'm going to try first editing one of my items that already has a photo. And I think this should actually work, but we'll try it. So no, I'm having company for dinner. I want lots of enchiladas. We'll be eating outside, of course, because eating inside with people outside your house right now is crazy. and not a good idea. So I'm going to browse to a new photo. I'll just pick something else. Pizza photo. Save. Have to add my redirect back. So now my updates run and my photo got changed. Cool. That seems good, right? I'm just going to put my redirect back in at the bottom of my save page. So the only change we made to the save page that was highlighted in blue, we simply added the updating of the photo name, the string, in our update statement. I'm going to scroll down to the bottom. I want to put back my redirect, so it'll just automatically take me back to the items page. But there is one problem. It seems to work, but what if I go to edit it again and I say, okay, no, 10 is too many. I'm not allowed to have that many people in my house, so I'll follow the rules. I'm going to update the quantity here. I don't need to change the photo this time. Photo's good. What's going to happen when I save this? And why? So I'm updating something else in my form. Right, you got it, Jacob. The photo is going to be deleted because if we look at the code here, right, let's look at our logic around the file upload. If we have a file get uploaded, well, then we process it and we save the name. Otherwise, we're setting the name to null. So this is going to remove, it's going to wind up wiping out the photo we've got here. Don't believe me? Let's try it. Boom. And now we've deleted the photo. All I wanted to do was change the quantity, but the way we've written the logic, the photo gets wiped out in this case. So we need a little more logic here that says, if I change my quantity but add a photo back in, well, all good. But we need to account for this scenario that we're editing something else about the grocery item, but the photo is good and we don't want to touch it. So much like we've recorded our ID in a hidden field on the form, I want to take the original name of the photo and also store it in a hidden field on the form. So when we save, if nothing got uploaded, we can compare. We only want to set this to null if this grocery item doesn't have a photo already. If it does, we want to keep the existing name. So we're going to need a little more logic here. And we need to store this file name in a hidden field here. So we can do that. And then we should be finished. So on the item details, not only are we going to print out if we have a photo, not only are we going to print out the name, but we're also going to print it into a hidden input right above. So in this case, our name will be, we'll maybe set it as current photo. Give it an ID of current photo. And our value is going to be the item photo. And again, coming back to, I think, Megan, it was your question about saving as a blob. It also makes this process a little easier because we're dealing with a string. So our value, we're going to echo out. So this might be null, which is fine if it's null. So it's really the same thing we did with our ID, just a new hidden box. So on our next page, if there's a file upload, fine, we just ignore this. We don't care what was there before. But if the user doesn't upload a photo, we want to keep the current photo when there is one. So there's our input we're going to add to the form. So if I refresh it now and view my page source, our current photo now shows us the file name that we've got currently. Does this make sense, what we're doing so far? Okay, thanks, Luke. So now on our save page, we need a bit of logic. In this condition, so no file got uploaded, but instead of just setting the photo to null, we want to set it to the current photo value. So when there is a photo already here, we get the name, and if there's no photo, it'll just be null, and that's fine. So if we want to edit this one, there is no photo, so it'll just show as null. And we'll update from null to null, which is okay. So instead of our photo being null, we want to get it from our hidden input. So this will keep any existing photo if nothing uploaded. Shorten. So if we've already got a photo, but we're editing the grocery record because we're changing the quantity or the category or the name, we're just going to leave the current photo in place. So now we can try editing. If I edit udon, okay, I need 3, not 4. No photo here, that's fine. I save and it updates. Now I want to change my quantity of enchiladas, but the photo's fine. I don't need to update it. I'm just going to lower the quantity and save. So now my photo is untouched. Right? It just keeps the name that we've already attached to this grocery item. So now we've kind of done our complete integration of a file upload. We can add a new item. Right, I'll add 2 new items, one with a photo and one without, because I want to make sure both are still working. So we'll get a package of pita from the bakery, no photo. Okay. Data too long. I missed something, right? You'd think I would have learned. Undefined. Oh. Whoops. Same thing in photo. Undefined index. So I need to initialize this to null as well, just like I did with my item ID. Good thing we checked. Got to go back and check all my scenarios again, because in doing this, I broke something that was working before. We do it all the time. So on my item details, just like earlier today, I initialized my item ID to null. We've got to now initialize our item photo as well. This will make this error go away. So when we're adding, we don't have this property. So if I try to read it, it throws an error, undefined index. So I'm going to initialize it as null. I'll try again. So now when I view my source, okay, the error's gone. Just get a value here of an empty string. That's cool. So I want a package of pita from the bakery. Not going to attach an image. So I can save. It gets added to the grocery list. No photo. Now I want to add one more item with an image. We'll get a pizza. I really need to add a frozen section here, but for now we'll just say entry. I'll browse to my pizza. So now it's working as it should. We can add with and without images. We can update really 3 scenarios: from no image to no image, from one image to another image, or we can update and we want to keep the image we've already attached. So we're now taking all of these. Yes, Megan, it does. So everything will be at 75 pixels. It will keep the aspect ratio when you're just setting the width like that. I mean, we could actually create a thumbnail because this is the full-sized image, which is big, right? It's a lot bigger, so it's a much, it takes more memory. So if we've got lots of items in the grocery list, this page is going to eventually load slowly if we take huge images. So in many sites, when you upload files, like on Facebook, when you upload them to an album, it creates smaller versions. It creates thumbnails. So it doesn't just display them at smaller resolution, smaller sizes, but it actually makes a smaller copy, which is an actual smaller file size, which means they load faster. So when you're looking at Instagram, when you see an album, someone's Instagram page, it's showing you a smaller version so that it loads faster. It's not showing you all the full-sized images until you click into them. And even then, they resize and compress them to save storage and increase load times. It also reduces bandwidth, and you pay for bandwidth with hosting plans. Okay, that's a really good question. So that's everything we wanted to do with file upload. So if you are doing assignment, if you're doing option A, you'll need to integrate file uploads in a very similar way to what we've done in the grocery list. When we're adding or editing a record, we should be able to attach a photo to it. If you did option B and you're building the content management site, in your control panel, you need to give the site administrators the ability to upload a logo. And that logo should appear in the header here. And if you replace the logo, then the logo should change. So either way, regardless of which assignment option you pick, that's how you're going to implement. Probably up to you, Megan, but I would recommend you probably aren't going to want it much any bigger than this. So maybe a height, you have to play around with the height, probably somewhere between 50 to 100 pixels high. You won't want the logo taller than that because you don't want your header coming way down the page. So I'd recommend setting a height parameter or using a class where you've got a predefined height there, would be my suggestion. Okay. If you feel like making a logo up for your site, like I've had students make logos before, I can show you some of them. So in this class, here were some of the logos I've had students make for their content management systems. Stuff like this. I know you're not designers, so you don't have to get carried away. That's fine. put a logo like this. And there are some free, lots of free logo makers if you want. I use this one. What's the site? You can use this one, put in like the name for your site, put in colors, gives you a bunch of images you can choose from, and you can use this for like, so I did something like this in my Android class in the fall. We did a little restaurant guide, Android app. So we use these colors, and so you can play around and create a logo if you want, but it's not required. I'm going to upload everything for today. Thanks everybody for your participation, contributions today. Next week, we want to make this list sortable and searchable. So how do we search by, you can download them as web graphics. So you can download them as JPEGs or I think as PNGs. So I've created some using this tool before. So yeah, here's some other good student logos. These were web students. I made this one. We made a music app in my Android class, so I used that to make a little music logo. So next week, we're going to make this searchable and sortable. So I'm in the bakery. I don't want to see all the other items. Just show me the bakery items for now to make this easier to see. And let me sort it as well. So we're going to do that next week. Okay, I will upload everything to GitHub and YouTube, and I should have all your marks for assignment 2 part 1 to you back by tomorrow. I will stick around in the WebEx room for a few minutes if anybody needs help or has questions. If things are working or you're burnt out, have a great week, and I will see you next Tuesday. Thanks, everybody.